like I say, obviously I've told you about AdsLad TV and what I do personally, and it is a platform there which I'd created, again, just on YouTube, thankfully, to provide a platform for the guys out there who seem to have left school and stuff, and they weren't necessarily musically talented, but they just wanted to be heard.
Sure.
So obviously I've been watching a few things online, and I was looking for someone with real reasoning. Now, nobody like yourself has got, the reasoning that you have. I believe it's second to none, just because maybe it's lack of research or whatever. But when I have obviously came across your stuff, I've watched a few of your things. I haven't seen all of them, but what I have seen, I think, has been brilliant. Now, one of the main things I want to talk to you about, Skagg, was perseverance. That was the first thing. No matter what you do in life, obviously, can you just explain what do you do outside of YouTube and stuff like that?
Personally, so I do, as far as a career, I do research in data analytics.
Yeah.
As far as hobbies, I'm really into snowboarding. That's my thing.
Right.
So I live here in Montana, snowboard every weekend, 2 or 3 times a week.
Sick.
About perseverance, I don't know if you want to talk about that in the YouTube context or just the everyday life context.
In general, I mean, if you see YouTube as a way of you persevering, then we can talk into that. But I was just talking more general.
I think when I think of perseverance, I actually think of versatility when I'm thinking about my YouTube career, even just my general career. I think versatility is the way you achieve perseverance, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
One thing I pride myself on is being a versatile individual. I like to think I can be plugged into a lot of different roles, a lot of different areas, and give it my best shot, hopefully do well.
Yeah.
So, and not all the time, sometimes things don't go well.
Yeah.
Sometimes things fail, and I think versatility is the way you get around that.
Yeah.
You try X, Y, and Z, it doesn't work. If you're versatile, you try A, B, and C, and you'll probably succeed next time around.
So I just want to know, in your area personally, what's it like, as people came from necessarily, obviously it's going to be very diverse, but as people came from decent backgrounds in your particular neighborhood, or is it just on any part of the class structure?
Well, I've lived in a lot of different areas, so it's hard to say. Where I live now is, just kind of your general middle class neighborhood.
Yeah.
I wouldn't classify it as wealthy or poor, nor would I classify myself as wealthy or poor. I live in kind of your classic middle class American neighborhood.
Yeah.
A lot of the houses look the same, that kind of place,
So the communities are all kind of the same and that type of stuff.
Well, where I live is I love the place I live. I live in Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah.
And Montana, if you're not familiar with the U.S., is one of the least populated states.
Right.
But it's a state of natural beauty. So it's got national parks.
Yeah.
It's got wilderness. It's got ski resorts. It's got all that cool stuff, but not a lot of people. So what I love about Bozeman is it's growing rapidly. It's kind of being discovered now as people get away from the cities and into the wilderness, so to speak. But it's a city of about 40 or 50,000 people, so it's got everything I want, but I can escape and get out in the forest as quick as I want. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And I love that. There's something about the outdoors, wilderness, the wild that's around here that's like timeless. You know what I mean? It's timeless. It's functionally lawless.
Yeah.
If you want to bury a body, you probably could. Not that I have. But there's something about that that's inspiring to me. Being in a place that's like, it's the same now as it would have been a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's really cool to me.
And do you plan to move from there at some point, or?
No. I plan to be here in this spot for, I hope, the rest of my life. And that's for a variety of personal reasons. But I have lived elsewhere. I grew up in Minnesota. I moved out to Portland, Oregon, to the West Coast for college. I took a job in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Lived there for a couple of years, and now I'm back here in Montana. I graduated high school in Montana as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So, other than the YouTube side of things, academically, were you willing to further your studies and stuff like that, your education, or is it now you want to you're a creative bird, you want to flap your wings? Is that the type of avenue you want to go down?
I'd love to go back to school.
Yeah.
I had plans to go to law school at some point, but I realized that I only have an intellectual interest in law, not a practical interest, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I have no interest in being a lawyer. I have zero interest in that. So, one of my advisors put it to me best when he's like, you don't go to dental school for intellectual interest. You go to dental school to be, and he's a great guy. He himself has a law degree. He's awesome. I would love to be just like him and just as smart as him.
Uh-huh.
So I probably won't do that, but I could see myself going back to get a graduate degrry in something I am interested in. Maybe I have my undergrad in political science, but I'd love to go study history.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to go study. There's a lot of things I could see myself doing.
So
that's a couple years off, I'd say.
with that being said, then, do you think, like I say, with the communities and stuff like that in Montana, because I know where I'm from, a lot of people think that to have money means that you can do better. Does that necessarily work where you're from as well, or can you still go up the ladder in success regardless of your background?
Well, the thing about Montana is it is a very, and Bozeman specifically, it is our economy here is based a lot on tourism.
Of course.
People coming in and visiting, and then they leave. So what you get here is a lot of service jobs, for better or worse. And it's also rapidly growing. So the thing that's tough here is it's a lot of lower paying service jobs.
Yeah.
And then there's a high cost of living, at least for this state.
Yeah.
So, getting into affordable housing, things like that, it's actually pretty tough. Now, for me, I left the state, got my education, secured a good job, came back.
Right.
And that works well for me.
Yeah,
but for a lot of my peers, it's tougher, because if you're trying to get into a position of, home ownership or whatever else, it's really tough if you're doing that by waiting tables or guiding like river floating expeditions or guiding outdoor expeditions where you're making pretty low money. So that's kind of the downside here, but it's growing so quickly that and you're seeing especially a lot of nonprofits come in. There's a lot of like park advocacy, wildlife advocacy type stuff. There's a lot of tech coming in as well. There's a big financial place right down the street from here and a big tech firm right down the street from here. So it's growing really fast. I'd love to see more stable, better paying jobs here. I think that would fix a lot in terms of people's ability to stay here and raise families here. But it's happening. Mm-hmm. It's by no means a struggle. I think we're in good shape.
And I think the fact that, in a way, though, that it's not happening is why, obviously, the economy where you're from benefits because of the tourism. Do you know what I mean? So although there's not a lot of jobs and all that kind of stuff, that's probably a reason why people are travelling and people are visiting. It's quite rural and all that type of stuff. It's more about the holiday resort, like you say, the skiing. Would you say that obviously adds to it as well?
Yeah. So I mean, it's I live right on. Yeah. So I live right on the. Sorry, I think it dropped a little bit. There we go. You're back. Cool. So I live kind of right on the northwest corner of Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah.
And that's really the draw here. Montana's only about 1 million people statewide, and it's a gigantic state. I think it's the 4th largest geographically. So you're talking about not a lot of people in a big giant area. Yellowstone this summer, they set the record. I forget how much it was, but it's multi-million viewers. Viewers. I'm thinking in YouTube. Visitors. They get so many views in Yellowstone. You wouldn't believe it. No, so you're talking about way more people that live in the state actually coming through the state to visit this place. It's the first national park in the world as well as the U.S. And so there was kind of a tougher time when we had the economic downturn, but now that things are recovering, people are really coming back, and it's a big draw for people to see the first national park, like wild as it was and is and will remain forever. But it's awesome to go in there. It's still considered one of the most intact ecosystems in the world. So you got all the animals that existed all across the western U.S. Before the settlement, which is just awesome. It's awesome to go in there, and you got to carry bear spray and stuff like that. And I still have yet to find the bear, but I found the tracks a million times. There's something that's just thrilling about knowing like you're not the strongest, most powerful thing out in the woods out there.
Yeah, a lot of people definitely still think that they are.
Yeah,
definitely. But the thing is, in the UK, that like you're almost selling me the dream there. That isn't sold in the UK at all. It's like come to the States, go to New York. Come to the States, go to Vegas. Do you know what I mean? I mean the Montana side of things. That's what I want to be about. All that side of it. Definitely.
And this is not a slight at the cities at all. And I've never actually been to New York City. I've been to most of the cities on the West Coast, not necessarily the East Coast, but spent a lot of time in DC. I have to go to Washington DC a couple times a year for work. But the wild US is as cool as it gets. It is awesome. That if I were encouraging someone from Europe to come visit and see, that's what I would say. The cities are great, but honestly, if you want cities, I haven't been to Europe, but I'm guessing the European ones are probably more interesting. I think there's more history there. That it dates back further. I'd be more interested in visiting European cities than U.S. cities personally.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's nothing to do in New York either. There's plenty to do.
So moving back on to what I was saying about obviously the money side of things and all that, what would your advice be to people where you're from who's not necessarily had the best upbringing and they are trying to succeed with whatever they're doing? Would you necessarily say YouTube or social media in general as a way forward? Do you think that's a good way to break the cycle? Or would you just say stick to what you're doing in any job and try and grow that way? Do you want to be a cog of life, so to speak?
I would never advocate YouTube to anyone as a means for what's the word I'm looking for? Upward mobility.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. YouTube is a pure hobby.
Yeah.
And if your expectation is to like make it big and get money, it's not impossible, but good luck. Good luck. What I would say is, I think the key to anyone for upward mobility is education. And I think in the US we do a pretty good job of taking care of that and making education somewhat affordable for people, but I'd like to see it be better. I'd like to see education more accessible for everyone. I know for me, my education is what has enabled me to be successful in pretty much every area of my life. Those 4 years that I had really crafted who I am intellectually and the person that I am just personally. And that helped me get the job that I have, which, helps me be in the house that I have, all that stuff, take care of myself. But it even has helped me in my online persona, right? The reason I'm a curious individual and I like to think about all these things and analyze all these things is because of the 4 years of conditioning that I had. So
So that, that again, all that kind of stuff's news to me.